Hi, everyone.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Science of the Soul.
Yes. We're so happy to be sharing this space with y'all right now. Whoever is joining us live, whoever is going to be listening to us in the future, we're really excited to be bringing you this show together for the first time, which is exciting for us because we've been working together now for how many shows? This is like 4. Plus, we did 1 or 2 radio shows together.
Right.
So it's been in the making. This moment's been in the making, and we're super excited to be now able to deliver what we've learned from coming together for the first time as 2 conscious beings. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So the show is about communication, and I think that communication is really the cornerstone for developing relationships, and it's something that I personally have been very passionate about in my life. I feel like I've really spent a good majority of my life learning how to try to be a very effective communicator, and the goal for me being to develop relationships that are authentic, that are meaningful, that are that develop intimacy between people, so that we can have more enjoyment in our connections. And I certainly know that in general, that collectively, that there is a real struggle with developing intimacy in relationships, and I believe a lot of that is centered around the fact that individuals have not worked through their own internal blocks. And so what we do is, many times, because we have unresolved issues within ourselves, those become the barriers which impede us from being able to develop more intimate connections. And so this show is essentially just a discussion about communication and about the dynamics around communication, and how we can improve communication with each other, and how we can develop more meaningful and authentic relationships.
Did you hear that, everyone? That's what we're talking about today, communication.
Yeah.
And, well, I guess we're just going to be real with you guys about how we are evolving right now and what that looks like as our energy increases inside of our body. It's increasing inside of everyone around us. And what kind of sparked this topic for the 2 of us is we, came together and needed to learn how to communicate with one another as very energetically sensitive beings who intuitively feel other people's presence. We feel their energy, we feel their darkness and their light, we feel everything about them. And when we come together and share space with one another, we have to learn how to communicate at a new level. And that's new for a lot of people. It's really new for a lot of people because we're waking up together. We're waking up as a community. We're waking up in this space, and it's new for us all. It's new for each and every one of us. And some of us are waking up earlier than others, but that doesn't mean that as those beings who are waking up earlier than others, that we also don't need to learn how to communicate with each other, that this isn't also new for us too. So as we came together and shared some space for the last week or so now, we had to learn how to communicate as energetically, intuitively, empathetically awakened beings. And yeah, we're just going to share a little bit about what we've kind of come up with, because this is important. It's important because we're coming together as a community. We're sharing this as a community, and this isn't a personal individual goal anymore. This is a collective goal, and we're definitely here to work with the collective, work with a team, work with bringing back harmony and balance to the whole system, not just our individual lives anymore. This is about giving back now and about coming together. So as we wake up, we're going to need to learn how to communicate with each other so that this can transform our businesses, this can transform our lives, our families, our relationships. This is beyond just friendships and intimate partners. This is how we're going to bridge this new pathway into our political structures, into our businesses, and into our mainstream life, is by learning how to really communicate with one another. So we got some cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Some cool stuff to talk about.
It's true, because I think moving into a new paradigm, we are used to, in a lot of ways, having very surface conversations with a lot of the people that are in our lives. And when you find yourself in a environment with people that are more self-aware, there is more information that is on the surface of our awareness. And like Jessica said, everybody is, waking up at their own specific point and at their own specific time frame, and the shifts are different for everybody, and the trigger points are different, and the healing is different, and the struggle is different for each individual. It's very unique and individual for all of us in how we are going about healing our souls and the transitions that we're experiencing inside of our bodies, and the vulnerability. And we're at different levels of vulnerability and sensitivity, and there's a lot of fears that are coming up because in order to transition into a higher state of awareness, you have to work through a lot of these things inside of yourself that before were in a lot of ways unconscious to our conscious awareness. And now that they're coming to the surface, it can be very intense, and people are individually going through these very intense processes of healing and learning about themselves. And and it's a very sensitive area, and I think that's a lot of times why you find there's a pattern that many people who are going through awakenings do have a tendency to have more alone time, because it requires that in order to really work through those things. So there's a sensitivity, I think, that's required in us learning how to communicate consciously, and to working through some of maybe the old patterns that trigger us and trigger our egos, and trigger the competitive nature that we have all many of us have been living in our whole lives in a world where it's primarily dominated by people operating at the ego level rather than the heart or soul level. And so this is definitely a new place for a lot of folks, and so we're hoping to share our experiences and share some tools and things like that, so we can
Great.
make it better.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And I think that to just pinpoint at all the little, he just said a lot right there in that short amount of time. I want to make sure that we're all catching what we're putting out and breaking it down now a little bit at a time. And it's really important to understand that as the energy around us is advancing and we are becoming more sensitive, as you were saying, to the energies of other beings, to our environment, we need to also remember that what's showing up in our lives are mirrors of ourselves. As we evolve to a higher state of consciousness, we are going to be calling into our world mirrors, so that we can accelerate our process and continue to evolve at a much quicker speed than we were evolving before, because the earth is actually vibrating at a higher frequency now. So you're going to get a lot more situations that call people that are very similar into your world, that are going to show you those last little things that need to be really fine-tuned, so that you can be more compassionate and loving towards yourself, and in turn towards other beings around you. So it's really important that we connect on that and let you know that it's going to be a little challenging right now, and if you allow yourself to push through that challenge and allow yourself to just see clearly when you do have a mirror that comes up, because these mirrors are not bad things as they once maybe were in the past, where they were fiery and explosive, and one person maybe was not feeling too great afterwards, maybe neither were feeling great afterwards. We're in a new paradigm of friendships and partnerships and community, where we can see each other as equal, and the mirror that comes in is going to be a mirror that's supposed to show you something in a beneficial way, in a positive way, if you can allow yourself to receive it in a new way. And that's what's really important. That's going to be one of the main foundations that we talk about today. Compassion, and really learning how to receive feedback, receive criticism, for lack of a better term, receive another person's genuine feelings without being defensive, without being your ego coming in and wanting to make a comment right back, or whatever comes up in those moments. We were taught to just react and not really think about what we're speaking. And in this new state of consciousness, this new vibration, we can't do that anymore. We can't just spontaneously run our mouths and and just throw things out because we'll really hurt people around us and we won't learn anything. And this next chapter is about learning and growing. So just knowing that your mirrors are going to come up right now, and then, well, thinking about how you can better handle the mirror when it comes, how you can better handle the stimulation that comes from looking in the mirror and seeing something that you need to tune into so that you may evolve and ascend and continue to better your own personal self. And we got a lot of that coming up when we came together because we hold a very strong mirror to one another. We have the same lots of things astrologically and lots of similar experiences, lots of similar habits, and lots of our awakening was along the same timeline. So when we mirror each other in a really beautiful way, and when your mirrors come up, they also are people beings that you're sensitive and emotional around, and when that kind of shifts, you have to learn a new way to adjust it. So we've learned that and practiced that in a growing communication now. So what's it look like when you have these mirrors that come in, and how do we communicate at a more efficient way? If in the past we might have, for example, defended our honor or our name or our worth, or defending anything is so simple as to why you went to work at the time you went to work, and we have all these defense mechanisms that come up whenever anyone says really anything to us about ourselves, because we've been so detached from our inner journey for so long as a species that anytime someone says anything about us, we take offense and we get defensive. So really the best way to look at that will be compassion, and talk a little bit about what they can bring into that realm when we get into those spaces where we want to defend. Our ego comes up. This is really ego realm. We feel that stirring in our stomach, and then we just blabber off something that we don't really truly believe, and it's not really our truth, and we want to work towards avoiding that in the future and sharing with you how to do that. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, in a lot of ways, the awakening is about being able to step into the observer and to be able to observe our lives and to not, like you said, be reactive. So, for me personally, this experience has provided me opportunities to learn how to step deeper into the observer and to learn how to be just more present and more compassionate and with simply listening. And we don't have to agree with each other. We're all different for a specific reason. We all come here from different soul journeys. We all have different life experiences. There's reasons we all have different astrological charts and different energetic configurations. And it's because we specifically chose this life, this body, this character, this energy, this journey, these dynamics for a specific reason in our lives. We have something that we're working through within our souls, and something that we're looking to birth through in this world. And so something that I've always spent the good majority of my adult life were some basic principles of, first and foremost, trying to do everything through the intention of love. And second of all, as that became a inherent pattern of my behaviors, everything that I did was through the intention of unconditional love. I worked towards learning how to accept people unconditionally as they showed up. And obviously, in order to do that, we have to learn how to accept ourselves unconditionally first, because everything starts from within our own personal relationship with who we are. And then as we learn how to develop an integrity in relationship and honesty in relationship to who we are, to no longer accept that we are going to be dishonest with ourselves, or we're going to fool ourselves, or for a lack of better words, I like to think of it as to get rid of the mind fuck, because a lot of people really spend their lives like deceiving themselves through their logic. And so there's a for in my personal experiences, there was a desire to really be completely honest with who I was on the inside and to not be deceiving myself. And in order to develop that relationship, I had to make that commitment to loving myself, to accepting myself, to being completely honest with myself. And as I learned to develop that relationship with myself, I was then able to take that relationship and direct it outwardly into my relationships with the world, and to see, as people showed up in my life, to accept them unconditionally exactly from where they were coming from, and actually having gratitude and appreciation for the contrasts that they provide and they bring to the world and they bring to my experience. So the thing about it is, I think if we can learn to embody some of those characteristics, we'll find it a lot easier to really embrace people and their difference and the contrast that they bring in our lives, and not have to necessarily want to change it or disagree with it or compete with it. And it doesn't mean that we don't have those patterns within us. Regardless, we're all working through those patterns in some form or another. But that's specifically some of the tools that I have used in my journey to try to really develop a strong foundation for nurturing and loving and creating a space where a safe container where people can feel supported and trusted in my presence. So, that's my take on that.
Thank you for sharing all
Sure.
of that.
No problem.
That's beautiful. Yeah, self-love is really where it all begins, and the entire process of this transformative moment that we're at. The entire thing begins with self-love. It's that inner journey, People are blasting the inward journey all around, and it's not just right now. It's been for centuries, Some of the greatest ancient teachers and gurus and philosophers that came into this realm before their time, to really start this process of awakening. They've been saying this for a very long time, that it's an inward journey, and once we figure that inward journey out, the external journey will just flow in harmony with what we've created on the inside. And if on the inside we have fear and jealousy and anger and all of these negative third dimensional battles that we've been seeing on this planet for a really long time, that's going to continue to see an external world. So this whole process really begins with, like he was saying, that getting into that inner world and aligning that with unconditional love, so that no matter what shows up in your life, whether it be a cheat day on your diet. The other day I made a whole pumpkin pie and I made it for the house. And I was the only one who ate that whole pumpkin pie. I ate a whole freaking pumpkin pie. And you want to know what? I didn't judge myself for that. I didn't make myself feel bad or feel like I couldn't eat for the next couple days because I ate a whole pie to myself. I just let it be. It is no attachment to that. And that's really what cultivating a deep sense of inner self-love is about, is just not having an attachment to anything that's really going on, other than to be totally supportive of every step of this journey in a loving, compassionate way, and not holding on to those moments where we need to eat a whole freaking pie. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes we need to go and take a journey or do whatever we need to do in order for us to align with our inner world. And to not judge it, not judge what shows up, not judge if you end up being late for something because you overslept. Things happen. And really, when we get to that space in our inner world where we're just loving ourselves totally and unconditionally for whatever shows up, whether it be you forgot to pick your kids up from school that day, which happens. This stuff happens. We're human, We're inside of this human body, and the human body sometimes oversleeps. That's totally okay. Sometimes we miss things. We have to learn to just not attach ourselves, not judge ourselves, not beat ourselves up for that kind of stuff. And when we don't beat ourselves up for that kind of stuff, and we don't attach all of those little things to ourselves, to the moments when we actually are imperfect, then we won't attach them to other people when other people, end up being a little bit late for that dinner reservation, or maybe they were supposed to pick up your kids from school and they forgot and you had to go do it. Or maybe they didn't eat your whole pie. Whatever it is, you don't hold an attachment to anything against yourself. And in turn, you don't end up holding one against the other people and how they show up in all of their beautiful imperfections and all of the ways that they are also benefiting the world. There's just total love and unconditional support and working through dialogues that end up being, at one point, maybe they would have ended up being confrontational because we were activated at a third dimensional consciousness. And in that third dimensional state, think about your chakras as these consciousness, and our third chakra is the ego. And the third dimension, if it's malfunctioning, if that third chakra is spinning out of control or blocked, you end up either being the manipulator or the controlled. You end up either dominating or end up having your life be dominated. Are you the seducer or are you the seduced? That's really what can happen at that realm. And this earth has been vibrating in a really dysfunctional third dimension of consciousness, very, very much dominate and control and lack and limitation and all of these fears. But what we're talking about is elevating now to that fifth dimensional or even higher, your higher levels of consciousness. When you get up into these higher chakras, in your fifth chakra, you're speaking your truth. This is where you are representing your thoughts, your truth, your belief, your path, your purpose here. And you've already ascended past living in the heart. You're already compassionate and loving. Now you're operating in an even higher space where you're compassionate and loving towards all, and you're speaking your divine truth. Your divine truth comes out in a loving way so that even when they don't meet, even when your truths don't meet, they're still met with love. And that's what's really important as we go on and start to form new businesses and new models of being for the children that are coming into this planet and who want to not have it destroyed in their lifetime. We need to learn how to communicate in love and just meet each other in love. And there are a few ways of doing that, We were talking about detachment and non-attachment to what's happening. That's a really great way, reflecting on the inside and not attaching to what's happening.
Yeah, and that comes over time, because there are a lot of things that we're still, people are always working through in terms of relationships and, behavioral patterns and lifestyles and belief systems. There's all of these unique and individual ways that we show up in the world. And, sometimes people don't meet our expectation, or they don't meet our standards, or they don't see things the way that we do. And that's fine.
It's okay.
It's not, you're not going to be in alignment with everybody, but as we become more aware and more conscious beings, we do need to develop skills where our direct communication becomes better, and we're not afraid to say how we feel for lack of hurting somebody's feelings, or really learning how to be more assertive, but also finding that balance between when it's appropriate to let things go and to not say something, and when it's appropriate to to be assertive and have direct communication. And so that's just really an individual feel thing. That's on an individual basis. In every circumstance and every situation is different, but I think every person, yeah. But I think that the most important thing is to try to always to have the foundation of our communication to be really just to be loving and supportive of people, and when we can do that, then we can create relationships of trust. We can trust the fact that somebody is always going to show up into integrity and try to be the best person and to do the best that they possibly can. It's when people are shady. It's when people show up from very self-centered ways, from angles of deception, from really a lot of folks in the world. There are circumstances where people who are operating from a very self-centered place, they do show up, and they don't have the capacity to understand the desire to create harmony in their environment necessarily. And it's not that they don't desire that, but that's just not where they're at. The way I guess I like to explain self-awareness is this: with more awareness, with greater awareness comes greater responsibility. And so there are always going to be folks who are not very self-aware in the world, and the less self-aware you are, the more self-centered you are. That's just the way that consciousness works. It doesn't make people bad or wrong or evil or whatever. It's just the nature of consciousness. People that are very unaware cannot see past their own tunnel. And so I don't even know where I'm leading on to this, other than the fact that we are moving into a space of higher consciousness. And so as we become more aware, there becomes more challenges of balancing all of the extra dimensions of understanding how we can work together better and how we can do it in a harmonious way without fighting and finger pointing and putting each other down. And so that's kind of what we're talking about.
I love where you're at right there with fighting. That was just what I was thinking about, going into really talking about some of the ways in which we can take what might have happened in the past, which is arguing, fighting, these battles of the ego that really come up, and they come up in a lot of times aggressive ways. We are living in an extremely violent world right now, or especially in America, all you're seeing on television these days is violence, is people talking terribly to one another. And what we're trying to create is a space where that doesn't happen, because when we look at violence, when we see violence, we breed more violence. And coming together in conversation and allowing each other to be heard without the argument, without the aggressive, without the violence. But what does that look like? If all we've been seeing from reality television and all the other garbage that's on mainstream media is that was like the thing of television when I was a kid, in reality TV. Remember, they would have these reality TV shows where they would pretty much pay these people to go on there and fight, because that made good television. That was what people wanted to see. Someone had a difference of opinion, like on The Real World. Did you ever watch The Real World?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, MTV Real World.
I like the MTV Real World. Remember those people, those beautiful souls that were told that they needed to have all these crazy, that was what people wanted to see. They want to see, fight with one another and, throw things, and, someone gets hit, and that whole thing, you make good TV, this idea of making good TV has put in people's minds that, that's how you interact with one another. And that's socially acceptable. And we're here to say that that's not socially acceptable anymore. As we wake up, we can't continue to scream at one another. We can't continue to raise our fists and our hands and sadly, in this world right now, our weapons. And there's a different way of going about it. So what happens when there are some traditional things that come up in the body when you start to get angry? When you have someone that's saying something to you, someone's saying something to you, and it's not resonating. We instantly go into our mind and start thinking of all the things that we want to be saying back to that person as soon as they're done saying. That's the number one. That's step one. Stop doing that. In the very simplest way. But how do we stop doing that? How do we stay present to another person when they're speaking to us, even if they're saying something that we don't necessarily want to hear? We have to stay there and listen. And when you're having those thoughts come up about what you want to say next, you're not allowing that person to be heard. You're not staying present with that person. And you are, in turn, making yourself very angry in your mind, because you're thinking of all these things that are fueling that fire, fueling your defense mechanisms, and literally making your body heat up. And we have to remember that our ego, that third chakra, is in our digestive tract, and it has heat. There's a fire there. There's a fire for a reason. And when we start to have these ego conversations in our mind, our body literally gets hot. It gets fiery, and it gets steamed up. It goes on attack mode. It goes into this aggressive state where, I need to have my thoughts out there now and defend myself in all these different ways. So when you start to have those conversations in your mind, realize that you're actually starting a big snowball effect that's going to escalate. So that's the first step in really trying to stop this pattern from, if you see this as a pattern in your life, if you see arguments on a daily basis and that kind of thing in your world, then maybe this is an area to tune into. Maybe you should recognize or tune into your mind and see if you're having these kind of conversations in your head when someone else is talking to you. And if you are, which a lot of beings are. I was there one day. I was used to argue all the time. and had all these conversations in my head that I wasn't, that was just fueling this fire. So when someone is speaking to you as a new, on a new level, we're going to stay there and we're going to breathe, and we're going to allow ourselves to just follow our breath. Just sit there with them while they're speaking and follow your breath. Think about all of those thoughts just kind of going away, and just follow your breath and just look at them. Let them know that you are visually looking at them. Show them that you are engaged, and just breathe. Allow yourself to breathe. And if you need to, in the beginning, while you're learning this, if you need to say literally to yourself, okay, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Like that should be the 2 words that are going on inside of your mind. Not, oh my God, I can't believe that they're saying all this to me right now. Like, I'm so angry. I'm going to go and just start yelling at them as soon as they're not talking to me right now. Because that's what that little voice in our head will say. Nasty stuff like that. When that voice is saying those things, step 1, start to breathe. Start to slow down your heart rate. Start to slow down the fire that's starting to build up in that space. And just stay present with them. So that, and when they're complete and they're, whatever they have to say, whether it's something that you wanted to hear or not, you acknowledge that you heard them. A lot of times we found that we would get frustrated with one another when we just weren't being heard. We just weren't being heard by each other because we were in that space of, having the ego come up and having the ego that wants to respond right away. When the ego responds right away, no one feels heard. The person who's speaking doesn't feel heard, and the person who was talking doesn't feel heard. No one feels heard. And then those same issues continue to come up time and time again until both people feel heard. So this will really be that space where we can start to implement some changes in that first level of being present, allowing that person to feel heard, to feel like their opinions, even if you don't agree with them, they're still worthy. They're still your opinions. They still matter. Even if they don't resonate with our personal truth, it doesn't mean that they're not beautiful for who they are and for their journey and for their path. We have to really get to a new understanding that, as you were saying before, it doesn't matter if we all get along and agree on everything. We can have things that we don't agree on, and that doesn't mean that we have to hate each other. It doesn't mean that we have to be violent towards each other and yell at each other. That just means that, we have to learn to be more compassionate and more loving towards each other in those situations that are going to be a little bit more challenging. And staying present, that's a really great way to start. Breathing and being present. Sounds so simple, right? But it's really not that easy. It takes a lot of practice.
Right. Yeah. And this is a part of birthing the new paradigm, so that people can have a different way at looking at the difference in the world. Instead of looking at things by like countries or ethnicity or religious belief systems, or all of these different ways that we go about boxing each other into these different categories. If we could simplify our thinking and come to a more expanded understanding that if you look at the rainbow, it has all of these different unique colors. And the rainbow is an expression of all of the spectrums, of the colors within the spectrum of light. Well, in the same way, human beings are representations of that light, of that awareness of creation, of God or the universe or all that is, or energy, or however you want to term it. But essentially, human beings come here as different unique representations of the light of creation. And so we all have a very unique and individual purpose for our place here. And so because society has taught us to put each other into boxes, into religious boxes, into countries, into political systems, and Republicans and Democrats and this and that, it's actually keeping us from expanding our awareness. It's actually keeping us in this limited paradigm. It's keeping us from developing relationships of intimacy, because rather than accepting each other wholly and completely for who we are, instead what we do is we push each other away with our limiting belief systems and with our boxes and with our judgments and with our fears and with our insecurities. And so we have all of these different mechanisms that we've been taught that allow us to keep each other away from the unity that is inherent within who we are. And so if we can begin to take some time to reflect on the fact that of an expanded awareness or perception such as that, we can begin to start dissolving these illusions of separation between self and within life. Because essentially, everything that's being expressed in this world is an expression of the Creator, whether you like it or not, whether black and white, good or bad, this or that. Everything is a reflection of the Creator's expression. And so it doesn't mean we have to agree with everything that we experience in the world. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with the level of consciousness of people that we come across. It doesn't mean that there isn't dysfunction. It doesn't mean that there isn't bad things or horrible things or despicable things happening. It simply means that everything is in the process of becoming more. And so if we can make peace with the fact that the difference that we experience in life has its purpose, we can begin to dissolve our own limitations, our own barriers, our own resistance patterns, so that we can find an internal peace with ourselves, so that we don't have to keep creating our own internal conflict. Because when we're fighting in the world, it's not because the world is doing something wrong to us. It's because we haven't found our own inner peace. It's because we haven't dissolved and resolved and healed and worked through all of the confusion in our mind. The reason that people are inherently unhappy and hateful and mean and cruel is because they are confused, because they are wounded, they are hurt, they are fearful, they don't understand, and they've been sold an idea of the world that is not accurate. And they're so engrossed in that illusion, and they're so unaware of who they actually are, the magnificence of who they are. And if you can't see the magnificence of who you are, how the fuck are you going to see it in anybody else? So it all starts with learning to see the magnificence of who you are, of loving yourself, of accepting yourself, and then taking that foundation of love and truth and compassion and acceptance and the nurturing kindness to yourself, and cultivating that within yourself. And the more you build on that temple within, you can begin to expand it out into the world. But you have to understand that the world doesn't operate from that frequency from at this point. And so we are always being fed information and perception that is full of a tremendous amount of distortion. And that distortion keeps us from empowering ourselves to the full realization of how magnificent we are. Yes.
I was just pausing so that we can really just let those words, the full magnificence of how radiant we are, like let that sink in for a moment. Just feel that that is who you are. That is why you're here. You're here to demand this magnificence to come through you. When we demand of ourselves to show up to any given situation in our magnificence, that changes everything. If you wake up and you say, today I have this to do, like traffic's gonna be terrible, I'm cold, like that first thing that comes out of your mind that day, if it has to be a complaint, your whole day is gonna suck. I hate to tell you that, but that's pretty much what's gonna happen. You're gonna have traffic, all of the things that you have lined up to do are gonna be a struggle for you, and you're gonna wonder at the end of the day, man, today the universe is out to get me. Well, you are the universe, and you are out to get yourself, because that moment you woke up, you said, I'm going to be in traffic, I'm going to have all these terrible things to do today. Yeah, you're right. The universe is out to get you. You are the universe. We need to recognize that. We are out to get ourselves. That's all it is. But if you wake up that morning and say, today is going to be magnificent, today is going to be wonderful, it's going to be filled with loving people and kind thoughts, and you know what? If someone's not, that's okay. So I'm just going to smile at them, because today is magnificent for me. And every day, you just continue to bring that energy, that vibration into your day, into your morning, into your life. You'll slowly start to notice that, around you, people are also starting to bring in more joy, more awareness of love, more compassion, more positive things, because they're feeding off the energy that you've been creating. And together you start to wake each other up and show each other this new way of being magnificent. I love what he was saying earlier about, I just want to touch base on, the countries and all these different boxes that we've made to keep us separate. I was watching this, I don't know what it was. It was some video on social media, and it was actually on social media, and how social media is really revolutionizing and changing and helping us to transform this world, because what social media does is it brings us all together. And Facebook now is, if Facebook was a country, it would be the third largest country in this world. That's incredible. That means now that we have this platform that brings us together, and we're starting to realize that, wow, there isn't, just because you believe that this is God and I believe that this is God, doesn't mean that we still don't have a lot that we can learn from each other, that we don't have something in common to share. We have this life, or we have a human body right now. That's something pretty huge in common that we share. All the other things are just limits that have been placed to keep us separate. And now we're coming together, and it's really important that we learn that on these social media sites, we need to communicate like we're all one. Because social media is bringing us together to be one with each other, to be connected to each other, to not be separate anymore. So we can't go and bash people on their page, or we see something we don't agree with, go and comment out of anger and start these angry kind of lashes on Facebook and on social media. That's just not the way to be. There is a difference between, you can go and post your opinion on something that you don't agree with. That's totally okay, but it shouldn't be coming from a space of aggression, or a space of that person is wrong, and because they're wrong to you, they're wrong to everyone, and that they're being wrong to you means that you need to be aggressive towards them. There's difference between that and someone commenting on your page their perspective and their view to try to stimulate a conversation that you both can learn something from. There's two sides to every single coin. And maybe in your differences and our differences that have kept us so separate, if we bring them together, in our differences, we can actually learn and evolve the human race, because we're taking all these things that have kept us separate and realizing what it truly means to be a human, the what that is about, that world vision coming back into reality, not the vision of X country, Y country, Z country, but the vision of the human race. Why are we here? Connecting us back to that space and that moment of unity. So it's really an important time for us to learn how to communicate with each other, because we're going to just continue to connect. We're going to continue to connect. Technology is going to continue to expand, and it's going to continue to link us together, because that's the secret of the future, is really us coming together as a human race.
Yeah, that's true. And so when you find people that are always fighting and always putting each other into boxes, I mean, the majority of people are operating from the competitive mind, because the competitive mind is the mind of duality, where it sees itself separate from the world. And so that competitive mind is the ego, is the logical mind that is always looking to categorize something, and is shielding actually its own insecurities and its own fears. And so as you step through into a experience of awakening or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, what ends up happening for many folks, I would imagine, I can speak from my own experiences, is a lot of these patterns end up coming up, these fear patterns, and they begin to help you to uncover some of the things within you, to be able to understand yourself from a more authentic, honest, and pure space. And so when you open yourself to higher consciousness, you actually gain access to the creative mind, which is the mind that connects you more consciously to the cosmos, to the collective mind. And it doesn't mean that the folks that are operating from the ego level or from the competitive mind aren't connected to the cosmos, because they are. Everybody is a channel for the divine. It's just that the folks who are operating at the ego level are much more unconscious of their place in creation and their role. And so the reason I bring this up is just to provide an additional expanded awareness in the fact that, kind of like Jessica was saying, we are all connected to the cosmic mind. We are all part of the creator. We are all part of evolution. We all are all a part of consciousness. We are all part of the unity of creation. We are just energy. We are conscious energy that has chosen to step into the physical universe in order to expand our awareness, in order to expand the awareness of creation through experiences, through our own unique and individual experiences. And so my understanding is that the internet was created as a direct reflection of this cosmic mind that shares all information. And so in order for us to move into the next stage of evolution, we've created an internet that provides us an opportunity to share in this cosmic mind as a physical representation of the spiritual realms, which are all inherently connected. So the internet, Facebook, and all this are tools that are being provided to us to allow us to step closer to being able to recognize our connectedness, our unity, and now we're able to share all of this different information and perspective and difference, and it's opening up a lot of people's eyes to how different we are, to to how limiting the world it is that we're living in, and how much potential we have to create a more authentic world, to create a world that provides us a greater quality of life, more health, more abundance, and more personal freedom, more happiness, more joy, more intimacy. All of these different aspects are what we're stepping into. And Facebook and the internet and social media, these are all tools that are assisting us to take some time to reflect on the limitations that we have all been experiencing in our lives in the past. And we're now being provided an opportunity to see a larger view of the world and to learn how to appreciate the differences that we all bring to the table.
Beautiful. Well, with all that being said, now that we know who we are, let's talk about some tools for this conversation, because, there are actually tools for our discipline in order for us to evolve to a space where we're able to communicate better with one another. And I've already talked about that first level tool of becoming present when you're having a conversation with another being, not allowing your thoughts to run around and start to think about what you're going to say next, but allowing yourself to be present and then allowing yourself to speak from the heart in those moments when you start to talk. When you're having those thoughts go through, you're speaking from the ego in that space, and you want to rise up and start to speak from the heart. So that will be really the first thing to start working with is remaining present in that space. And another thing that I used to do when I was really trying to connect with someone else and working with those thoughts that were running around in my mind, because you're all like, yeah, well, Jess, I have all these terrible thoughts that keep running through my mind and I don't know how to shut them up. That's a question. That's a real question, and that's a very valid question. That's where we all started. How do I get this freaking mouth in my head to shut up? And the one thing that I really used, and I thought this was, it was a little extreme, but I'm an intense person, but I knew that I needed to do this in a way that was disciplined to myself, because I knew I was disciplining my mind. So I would wear a rubber band around my wrist, and maybe I've talked about this before, but I'd wear a rubber band around my wrist, and any time that my thoughts were not in line with what I wanted to be either present with someone else, or maybe I wanted to be thinking about something, but my thoughts were not in line with how I truly felt, I would snap myself in this rubber band. And I literally snapped myself back into my reality of the present moment. And my ego also learned that when it was going to run its mouth, it was going to be disciplined. My body was going to be disciplined. I was going to snap myself, and it was painful. It was a little bit of pain. That was enough that over time, as I continued to do it, it's like that, how you train a dog, what Pavlov's through, how you train a dog, and you give them the treat, and then you punish them, and then it's the same thing. Like over time, it's going to want to have things that it's going to be rewarded with. And if you're not disciplining those thoughts, they're going to continue to have a conversation with themselves. You got to discipline them. So wearing the rubber band can help in that space. So you're staying present, and if you're not able to stay present, you have this new tool. Another way of really tapping into a higher level of communication is knowing that we all are unique expressions and we all have our own opinions, not speaking for others when we're talking. A beautiful thing that I learned in the ayahuasca ceremony that I just went and did like 2 weeks ago in Joshua Tree is we all sat around afterwards, and there was about 55 of us at this point. At the end, like everyone between the medicine woman and the people who helped, and then the 50 of us who were there for the ceremony, at the end we went around and we shared what our experience was like. And something really amazing that she said in that moment beforehand, she said that I want you to only speak in first person. You know, I this, I that, not, you know, what you received from the experience, not generalizing them that we all received that. No, this is what you received. So not speaking in terms of, you know, we've got to wake up, or we've got to do this, or we've got to do that, but speaking, I've got to wake up, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So we're not generalizing for the people around us, because when we do that, other people start to, this is not a conscious thing that goes on, this is a subconscious thing that's going on. They start to either turn you off, they're no longer listening to what you have to say, so then you're not feeling heard, or they're coming up with all these other things to say, or they're starting to feel that you're someone that's going to just, you know, generalize and preach and all these things, and that you're trying to change them. And as soon as someone feels like you're trying to change them, they close off. And when we talk just for ourselves, because this is our personal experience of this life, I need to do this, I need to do that, or I realize this or that, for communication, the other this, that, and the other thing, you know, then we'll know that we're truly allowing ourselves to speak for ourselves and not for other people, and that will eliminate a lot of arguments. It'll eliminate a lot of battles that go on in communication.
No, it's true. I think that a lot of that is the self-awareness and its patterns of learning how not to project our perceptions of the world onto others. And we've all done it for many aspects of our lives.
Right there, I've done it in many aspects of my life. See, right there, we're gonna start with that. Even us, everyone.
Yeah,
it's
a very habitual thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a habit, and it's a behavioral pattern to project our specific perception of the world onto others. Mm-hmm. And as we develop our self-awareness, and as we become more awakened, we recognize discernment, and we're able to recognize the unique vibration that everybody around us brings, and we learn how to be more present, and how not to project our individual perceptions onto others, but to simply just be aware of the energy that's around us. And it's always a constant process of growth and understanding, to learn how to be present, how to be silent, how to and how to work through those different filters and those different projections and things that we have inherently done in our lives for a long time. Something for me specifically that I've worked through in my relationships or in my communication, kind of like Jessica talked about, disciplining herself with a rubber band. I have always sought to try to create the most harmonious relationships possible through my communication. And so what I would do in my communications was that if after I had maybe completed some communication or a conversation or an interaction with somebody, I made it a habitual habit to actually take a look back, whether it was right after the situation or later on in the evening when I got home, or whatever the case may be. And I would actually reflect my day, and I would reflect on the conversations, I'd reflect on the energy, I would reflect on the way it made me feel. And if I felt that there was some type of a misalignment, or if I felt that there was an opportunity for me to make an adjustment in the way that I went about communicating in order to create a more harmonious situation, I would either go back to that person, whether it was that day or an hour later or the next day, and I would make sure that I resolved any discrepancy that I felt. Or if it didn't need to be resolved, and it was just something that I internally felt that I wasn't aligned, or I had some resistance, or I had some patterns within me that didn't allow me to create more intimacy, more connection, more acceptance, more heart connection, more coherence, then I would look at the belief systems behind the reasoning, the behaviors, the way I talked, the way I acted, whatever it was that didn't make me feel good inside. I looked at the dynamics behind that, and I would tweak my belief system or my thoughts or my ideas or my behaviors so that I could continue to evolve my consciousness and to continue to learn how to create a level of self-mastery and relationship mastery and my ability to have harmonious interactions with people. So that was my personal path on learning how to, and I continue to do that, to be very conscious as the observer of my personality, of my my interactions with people. And so we're always in the process of becoming better people, better communicators, more conscious, more authentic, more honest, more loving, more compassionate. All of these things are opportunities every day, every relationship, every interaction, every moment is an opportunity to better ourselves, to become a more expanded version, a more amazing, awesome, and more dialed, more everything. We are just evolving creatures of consciousness that are capable of just, of just awesomeness. So
Awesome. I just want to add to what he's saying, because we are in a moment where we're giving you some tools to use and not just telling you about our experience. But what he was saying, and a really practical tool, if you're not someone that can visualize your experience of the day, is at the end of your day, keeping a journal, writing down what comes up throughout your day. If you have an interaction with someone, writing about that interaction, writing how you responded, read on paper how you responded to that being. This is a real wake-up call when you actually see on paper how you're responding, and then write down how they responded to you in that response. This will, he has a brilliant mind, is able to just go and sit there and go through this day and then go back and actually reflect on these people. But sometimes we need a little bit more than just that, and so you just take it the one step further and write down all of those conversations that you had. Write down the words that they said, write down the words that you said, and then read them and see if what was happening is in energetic alignment for the life that you want to create. That's a really great way of going about doing that. And just remember that, to wrap this all up, that we are all going through the awakening and transformation. All of these amazing things are happening as we continue to talk about what's happening and how we can share more of this with each other. The conversations have to change, and to just wrap up and sum up kind of what we've talked about is really stepping into being present and being present with one another and listening to each other, letting someone know when they finish their thoughts instead of coming back with something that you want to say, letting them know, I hear you. Thank you for sharing that with me. If you don't agree, then you can keep that to yourself maybe, or if it's beneficial to both of your growing and maturing together, then you share it in a way that's not confrontational. You share it in a way that, then in turn you'll be heard. So it's really what it's about, is coming together and being in that space where we can evaluate, be the witness for our lives, know that everything, even if you have moments where you get angry with someone still, that's okay. It comes back to that self-love, that coming back to accepting yourself as you show up. And if some days we show up and it's not super easy for us, that's okay. We have a long life on this planet, and it's going to just continue to get longer as we wake up our consciousness and ascend as a human race.
Yeah, and it's going to be ugly sometimes, and it's fine. I think it's perfectly fine to step through and to allow our ugliness to rise and surface and express itself, and to release itself. There are going to always be moments that are not really pretty when we're healing our souls, when we're learning more about who we are. But in a lot of ways, it seems to be about embracing our vulnerability and our willingness to not be right or wrong, but to simply be focused on evolving our souls and to being the greatest versions that we possibly can be. In order to do that, we have to transcend that the differences, the rights and the wrong, who's right and who's wrong, and who's this and who's that. Yeah. And we need to be in loving allowance for how things are showing up in our lives, and just to be the best people we can be. So.
Great, that's beautiful. You know, if you have any questions with any of this that comes up, please leave comments and we'll be sure to get in touch with you. If this is something that resonates and you want to talk more about this, just leave a comment or send us a message and we would be happy to chat more with you. We're so grateful to share this space with you every first Wednesday of the month. So we look forward to connecting with you all next month, December. And we'll leave you here with just namaste.
Right on, guys. Take care.
You're so baby.
Good job.
Mm-hmm.